Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix. I'm Carolyn Allenby. Pronouns are she, her. I am your song leader today. Today's service is about what Unitarianism and Universalism contributed to our faith. I'm going to tell you a little story, then I'll invite you to stand up. Actually, I'll invite you to stand up. Our song for today is Enter, Rejoice, and Come In, which is our song for the month, for our opening song. Okay? So now, a little bird literally gave me a singing lesson a few days ago when I hit the Phoenix Mountain Trail. So it was up on a branch with its feet clawed around the branch of a Palo Verde. So imagine your feet holding on to that. You've got a whole floor here, not just a typical, okay? And its wings were back. So shoulders were back. It's breathing. Singing teachers will tell you to breathe from your belly. I could see it in this bird. He only had two notes, or she or he, her, they. Just went.
They is good.
She just went, hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo. That's right, like, hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo. And I could see the belly feathers shaking when she sang that with such joy. And I thought of this song. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Thank you. Welcome.
Please remain standing while we light our chalice. Please join me as we recite our covenant, and Chandani lights our chalice. If you're watching remotely and you have a chalice with you, please light it with us. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, share fellowship, thus do we covenant.
Good morning. You may be seated. Good morning and welcome. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix. No matter where you are from, how you worship, how you identify, you are welcome here. Welcome home and welcome to worship. Welcome as we explore the mysteries of being human together in community. I am Reverend Christine Dance. My pronouns are she and her, and it's an honor to serve as your minister. And for any of you who identify as mothers this morning, happy Mother's Day. The Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix strives to be a spiritual community for our time. one that is theologically diverse and radically inclusive and justice-centered. If you are new here, we are so glad you found us. You should come a few times because you never know what's going to happen up here at UUCP. But if you are new, and we've got some families that we haven't brought, I'm sorry I didn't recognize you, welcome back home. If you are new or coming back after a while, could you stand so we can recognize you with us? Welcome, welcome. We do have a few announcements about our community. The Key campus, which was formerly known as the Human Services Center, has started relief centers around the Phoenix metro area. Thirst Aid is your opportunity to help by donating funds in any amount for water bottles for the next 5 months. There's a link on the civic engagement page on the webpage. Next week is a very important Sunday in the celebration of our community. It is Celebration Sunday, and it is the time at the end of the year when we celebrate our community. Next week, it is a huge week. We're packing all the things into 1 week. We are dedicating our children, graduating our coming-of-age class, bridging our young adults, welcoming new members, and acknowledging and thanking our volunteers. So if you are a UUCP volunteer for anything, please come and be recognized. And if you wish to join the congregation or have a child dedicated and haven't already made plans to do so, please reach out to me early this week. And then, just to be excited, the following week is our rescheduled Pet Blessing Sunday. So much excitement in 2 weeks. I don't know if I can handle it. How can you? You all right? You ready? And now, let us draw deeper into this place and this space and the deeper moment, present moment here, and settle into our worship.
Our opening words are from the Vietnamese-American comic book artist and illustrator Trungles. Dear liberal allies, you and I learned very differently things in very different ways. If you didn't live an experience, then step aside. We students of color, gay students, trans students, children of immigrants and refugees, knew this stuff before our professors told us what to call it. We learned it from the bottom up. You learned it another way. You received a set of keywords and a list of definitions. Your learning was, in all likelihood, here is the word, this is what this word means. For you, it was xenophobia, a strong fear or dislike of people from other countries. For us, it was xenophobia, the time that boy in my kindergarten class spat on me because I couldn't speak English yet, or when I saw the clerk yell at my mom in the grocery store because her English wasn't clear enough. For you, it was racism, unfair treatment of people who belong to another race, violent behavior towards them. For us, it was racism. That one time I saw that manager tell the sales girl to follow my dad around at Kohl's. Or the one time my neighbor's kid got shot by the police and they tried to cover it up by convincing everyone he was in a gang because he was Hmong. But we knew he wasn't. or the time my dad told me I shouldn't rollerblade to the library because I'm not white and it's not safe for me. For you, it was homophobia, a strong dislike or fear of homosexual people. For us, it was homophobia, that time in the 6th grade when Ryan shoved me against a glass door and banged my face into it while yelling an expletive at me until the teacher stopped him. Or when my Catholic high school's president told me that though he loved me as a child of God, he still believed I was sinful. For you, it was classism, prejudice or discrimination based on social class. For us, it was classism, the time when my best friend came over to hang out and her parents didn't want her to come over again because they didn't like our neighborhood. Or that one time when my friend had no idea what food stamps looked like and I was too embarrassed to explain what they were. So while you were learning that these academically framed phenomena were real problems, we were getting figurative name tags for awful things that we already knew. Your weekly vocabulary list was, to us, just a hollow shadow of our lived experiences. When you step out of class, you get to say, "Oh, awesome, I'm learning how to be a good ally and a better human being. This will help me." For us, it's more like, so that's what they're calling it nowadays. When exactly did they say change was going to come for us? I now invite anyone who'd like to come forward for Together Time.
Good morning. My name is Katie Resendez, and I'm the Director of Children's Ministry here at UUC Phoenix. Today, I want us to practice something before I tell you a story. See, I'm going to get to talk about UU history, which is really cool, because it's a history that we're part of. Right? We get to step into this line of history, but the thing is, when we tell historical facts, a lot of times we like to say, a long time ago, because that makes it feel further away, right? Not me, someone else, a long time ago. But when we step into a history and we say we're part of this, we claim it and we say, even if something happened back there that we don't like so much, we're part of that river, we're part of that history, and we get to be part of the change. Okay. So, I'm going to talk about some things in UU history that didn't go so well. We're going to practice saying, "Oh, we messed up." Say it with me. "Oh, we messed up." Okay. We're going to say that a few times. And then there's something I want to practice doing that we only get to do once in this story. We get to be the screeching record that stops. So, first, how many of you know what a vinyl record looks like? Okay. And Mr. Sam, can you tell us what happens when the needle skips and the record screeches to a stop? Everything in the room stops because it's a terrible sound. Okay? So, and it doesn't have to be terribly loud. I'm going to ask you all to make a bad screeching sound. For folks who have sensory stuff, this is a great time to put your hands over your ears. Okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, but it needs to be a little bit shorter, so let's watch my hand. So it's going to go screech and stop, because if it goes on forever, people get used to it. Isn't that horrible? No matter how bad it is, people get used to it. Okay, watch my hand. This means go. This means stop. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Good. That's good. We're working on it. Okay, Unitarian Universalists. I'm not going to say a long time ago. I'm going to say in our history, there was a time when some of our ancestors joined a movement called eugenics. And this movement said that there were people who, because of the way their brains act or their body functioned, they did not deserve to have children. And that meant that they believed that there was a group of people over here who could decide whether or not a group of people over here should be parents. Let's practice our first line. Ugh, we messed up. That was horrible. Horrible. There was a time in Unitarian Universalist history when we realized how bad slavery had been. And we realized the damage it had done. And so we as a faith promised in writing to make better, to put money and education out there to fix it. We made a big deal of the promise that we were going to do and how we were going to fix it. And after we made that promise, we did nothing. Yeah. Yeah, good job. There was a time when Unitarian Universalists from all over the country and Canada, well, mostly all over US, but some from Canada were there, came together at a General Assembly, which is a big meeting we have once a year, and we're about to have one. This year it'll be online. They came together at a big meeting, and we make business decisions, but we also have really cool workshops. We get to hang out together. There's a lot of really fun stuff that happens. And sometimes there's a big celebration dinner, and it usually has a theme. And this celebration dinner was going to celebrate a particular person, Thomas Jefferson, and everyone was encouraged to come dressed in costumes from the time. What do folks know about the time that Thomas Jefferson was alive? Okay, I know some of y'all took history. I just saw an announcement about people taking AP tests. So what do we know about when Thomas Jefferson was alive? He messed up. I heard someone say it. He owned slaves. So when people said, oh yeah, we'll go in the costumes to the party as the people who were at that time, those people were white. They did not think about what it meant to be African American and be asked to go to a party themed about the time of slavery, right? And what happened there, we can't say, oh, we messed up yet, because the mess keeps going. When people heard about it, they said, wait, stop. But their voices weren't strong enough, they weren't powerful enough to make the shriek of the record. So they had to go to allies and be like, hey, this isn't going to work for us. And the people they went to said, oh, yeah, we hear that, but we put a lot of money into this party. And people really got into their costumes. Let's go through with this and we'll figure out and fix it later. Now we get to say it. Oh, we messed up. A few years ago, I went to a conference in Denver of Unitarian Universalist religious educators. Addie, what do you think a religious educator is? Do you have a guess? Oh, Bela has the guess for you. Okay.
Someone who teaches someone about religion.
Yep, there you go. Someone who teaches people about religion. And in this case, it's Unitarian Universalists. I went to a conference. The very first night, I drove from here to Denver. Got there just as the opening opening meal was starting. And everyone was in there, and it was very crowded and full, and I had driven a long way. So I went up to my hotel room, took a shower, came back down. By the time I came back down, the first workshop had started. And remember, in general, Unitarian Universalist educators spend a lot of time talking about consent and giving people the power of their voice. When I walked into the workshop, the very first thing I was told was, Carrie, do you mind if I make you uncomfortable for a second? Okay. Everyone stand up. That's what we were told. Please don't do this. Everyone stand up. Introduce yourself to the person in front of you. Hi, I'm Katie. Nice to meet you. Now take 2 steps close to them so that your toes are touching. And then have a conversation about a difficult topic. Have your seat. Like science, I wish. That would have been good. Did you know she's a chemistry teacher? But we were told to do that and told that it would make us a better person and to just trust the process. And we should feel okay about it. And other people in other places had done this before, so we should be fine doing this. And that we were going to spend the entire 4 days working on a conflict management form that required us to get close and intimate with people, so we needed to practice it. Consent has been breached, exactly. So I went out and sat in the hallway. I kind of watched. The next activity started. The next activity was for half of the people to stand still and kind of put your hand on a chair with their eyes closed, while other people took a certain number of steps to get to the next person, and then the person with their eyes closed was supposed to disclose something. So one, how many of you feel comfortable standing in a crowded room with your eyes closed while other people walk around in an indeterminate way? One brave soul. But for the most part, it was kind of intimidating, and then to be told what to say without opening your eyes was a bit much. So at that point in the evening, I suddenly had tons of friends. Everyone came out in the hallway. Not everyone, but about a third of the people were out in the hallway with me at that point. One of the people who came out was Aisha Hauser. Aisha is now one of the lead of the ministerial team for Church of the Larger Fellowship, which is our largest denomination worldwide, our largest congregation worldwide. And she looked around at everyone who was out there. People who were out there tended to be brown, black, queer, victims of violence. Everyone who left were people that had been oppressed in some way and who these tools of communication had been used against us, either directly to control us and tell us what to do and break our consent, or to tell us that the way we were talking was wrong, the way we were raised was wrong, or that our actual voices were wrong. So something amazing happened that night. Even though all the money had been spent on these speakers, even though the whole weekend had been planned, the record screeched. And everything stopped. We spent the next 4 days breaking up into small groups and going back together and back and forth and talking about how to fix it. We canceled all of the events that were planned except for the meals. And we made sure that everyone was able to eat on their own if they needed to, or in community if they needed to. Yep, made sure they didn't have to go into any of the weird spaces. We told the facilitators who had been hired, here's why we're not going to keep going with you. Have a good one, bye. Please don't come back to the hotel for this duration. And we made some huge, huge changes. Not just to how the weekend went, but also to how our professional organization, LREDA, the Liberal Religious Educators Association, runs itself, how our structure is, how we look at conferences going forward, and some of the other big stuff that came out of it was we changed how we do religious education in our congregations. Because of our willingness to say, nope, that was wrong, we messed up, stop that record, and change things. And it was hard. And it was yucky. And I remember seeing lots of people cry. I remember I was really cold that whole weekend because it was Denver, but also because there was a lot of walking around outside and having to think about stuff and process stuff. And it stunk. But it was a time where we said, oh, we messed up. And we fixed it. We messed up pretty bad, so it was worth fixing. And I think it's important to remember that when we are together in community, all of the resources that we have are resources we can use to fix it. And resources we can use to come together and to make things way, way better. So let's hope that in the future, when we say, oh, we messed up, that we make sure that that record needle goes, screech! Thank you, everyone.
For May, our Share the Plate partner is Rose America, which stands for Revealing Our Stories of America. We are so glad today to have Shelley Gordon from Rose America with us to tell us about her organization. Shelley?
Oh, thank you. So thank you again, all of you, and the Share the Plate Committee for considering Rose America for a donation this month. So as John said, I'm the co-founder and board chair of Rose America, which stands for Revealing Origin Stories of America. We're a 501c3 education nonprofit, and we offer professional development programs for Arizona K-12 teachers that give them new tools, new resources, new thinking, new knowledge, all kinds of great information for them to be able to incorporate origin stories of people of color into everyday teaching. What does that mean? So here's a very compressed story, because I don't have a lot of time. When I was in school many decades ago, and this is really consistent with what we've been talking about this morning, what I learned, among other things, was the Eurocentric, white, sanitized version of American history, where human enslavement, for example, was a dark chapter in our nation's history, but good ultimately prevailed, and that the U.S. has always been this exceptional country. Then fast forward to about 5 years ago, when I read the New York Times 1619 Project, which I know has been fraught with controversy, but here's why. It really altered my life, and because the 1619 Project challenges the dominant narrative about our nation's history. That, in fact, our greatest achievements, our economic and industrial might, our policies, our institutions, our criminal justice system, the inequities of our healthcare system, our cities, our suburbs, and our highways, all of those things can be traced back to human enslavement and the racism that kept it in place for centuries. It was also Black Americans who fought to make our country live up to its stated ideals. And it was Nicole Hannah-Jones, who is the architect behind the 1619 Project, who said that the Black American story is one origin story, but there are many. And those are the stories that I've been learning about over these last 5 years. They should be a fundamental part of our education. So here's what's so today. In Arizona, over 65% of students in K-12 schools are students of color. The dropout rates, in general, are highest among Black, Pacific Islander, Latinx, and Indigenous students across the country. Students of color tend to lose interest in school and not perform well when they don't see themselves in the curriculum and the instruction materials. Likewise, those same students flourish in classrooms that are culturally responsive and racially inclusive. So the need for culturally responsive and inclusive education is really vital to engaging all students. So, what if all teachers made it a priority to teach the spectrum of origin stories? What if joy and equity and cultural relevance were at the center of students' educational experiences? Would their faith in education grow? Would academic achievement improve? And could we begin to create historical empathy in our students so they connect emotionally with the past? These are the questions that Rose America set out to answer. So, in essence, we offer programs for Arizona K-12 teachers led by educators of color. These are scholars, these are authors, these are award-winning teachers, even investigative journalists who come and give programs that open up teachers' minds and allow them to see that they can do this, even with testing, even with all that they have going on, that they can incorporate these origin stories of people of color into everyday teaching. Our flagship program is the Rose America Summer Institute, which actually starts again June 10th. This is a virtual 8-day 12-hour program for Arizona educators, both teachers and administrators. They applied to get in. We've gotten grant funding from the Arizona Humanities, from the Salt River Project, from the ASU School of Historical, Philosophical, and Religious Studies, and from individual donations. And I'll just say, I'll wrap up by saying that we have 30 participants. We have grant money to pay them to participate and to pay our presenters, but we're opening up the program to the public. So I'll be in the back of the room at the end of the service today, and if anyone has any questions or is interested in joining us in June, I'll be there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shelley. And as a historian myself, I can't tell you how important this topic is to me. So please be generous. Ushers, thank you for your willing hands to help us pass the plate.
Well, I am, for a couple more months, have this position of real power where I can choose something for an offertory that has nothing to do with the service. It's not what we usually do, but consider it a palate cleanser for the meal to come. This is a song that my family used to, when it was all getting along, camp together and around the campfire. This is one of the songs we sang, The Ash Grove. We have Carolyn, who's going to be hopping back and forth between instruments, and we may take slight breaks between verses just to make that possible.
So it's a time for us as well as you to breathe in between sections. So, okay.
The ash grove, how graceful, how plainly 'tis speaking, the wind through its playing has language for me. Whenever the light through its branches is breaking, a host of kind faces is gazing on me. The friends from my childhood again are before me. Each step wakes a memory as freely I roam. With soft whispers laden, the leaves rustle o'er me. The ash grove, alone is my home. Down yonder green valley where streamlets meander, when twilight is fading, I pensively roam. Or at the bright noontide in solitude wander, amid the dark shades of the lonely ash grove. Was there while the blackbird was cheerfully singing, I first met the dear one, the joy of my heart. Around us for gladness the bluebells were ringing, but then little thought I how soon we should part. My lips smile no more, my heart loses its lightness. No dream of the future my spirits can cheer. I only can brood on the past and its brightness. The dear ones I long for again gather here. From every dark nook they press forward to meet me. I lift up my eyes to the broad leafy dome, and others are there looking downward to greet me. The ash grove again is my home.
It is an important practice in this community to make time to share pieces of our lives with one another. Sharing them together, we can amplify our joys and lessen our sorrows. If you are on Zoom and wish to share a joy or sorrow, you can write it in the chat. And if you are here in person, there is a table in the back that has sheets of paper like this, and I have several of them. As we open this sacred time to share in community, let us take a deep breath and open our hearts to the joys and sorrows that we share together and those that are also still in our hearts. We have a joy from Michelle Morgan and Sam Kirkland. Michelle and Sam welcome Sam's brother Shannon for a visit. Hi, Shannon. Everyone say hi, Shannon. And also happy to announce Michelle's mother had her 99th birthday yesterday. We have up in our sound booth, Danny and Liz, can you please stand up? Danny and Liz say, Liz and I are officially getting married. They are going like Las Vegas style. They are heading to Vegas on the 27th. Marriage license is filed, and no Elvis. So congratulations. We will celebrate with you as many times as we can. And I have Granger Macy is with us today. We haven't seen Granger for a while. We're so glad to have you with us, Granger. But Granger is so sad to let us know that his son Michael died suddenly this week. He was 45, and he leaves behind a wife and 4 children. So I know that Granger would love some words of encouragement and support as he is supporting his family. Our hearts are with you, Granger. For all of our joys and sorrows, those named and those in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts, we send our love to each other and to those online, knowing we are in one community. When we are holding so much in our world and in our hearts, it is good to take some time to connect with our body and our spirit. And today it is Mother's Day. For many of us, it is a warm and fuzzy holiday filled with yummy feelings. For others, it can be difficult and complicated. For some of us, it is both. I invite you to settle into a time of meditation and prayer with the understanding that where you are, wherever you are feeling about this holiday, there is likely someone else in this room that is feeling that too. And there is likely someone else in this room who has a very different experience. Let us settle into the present moment with words from Reverend Linda Hart as we hold all of it. From where have we come, this breath, these fingers, a heart that opens and closes, opens and closes? What is it that has made this body, feet and legs, hair and teeth? We come into consciousness in the middle of this story. The world and its vast life reaches far before we knew and grasps at the future we cannot see. And here we are, living these days for better or for worse. Whatever acts of chance occurred to bring us to birth, whatever happenstance laid this particular path for our lives, in these moments, on this day of calm and stillness, may our hearts be open in gratitude for the gifts we have found along the way, for love given sweet and free, for the peace of the morning and the warm colors of the sunset, for the grace of companions and moments of ongoing birth as our hearts are renewed, and for those who have offered us the gift of mothering, no matter their age or gender, those who have tended and care, those who have offered support and comfort, who have stood by, and those with us, those who have given us life by their birth or by their presence in our lives. Recognizing the grief that often comes with such memories, let us open our hearts in compassion for our broken hearts, for lost mothers, for mothers who could not love us as we needed, mothers who abandoned us, and those mothers whose longing for children was never met. In the stillness of these moments, I invite you to speak aloud or write in the chat the names of those who have given you life, who have companioned you, and who are held in your heart on this day. Judy Mawiney. Lillian Wong Mawiney. Naftel Dietrich. Nancy Fassett. Amen, and blessed be.
This song is a musical version of what Christine was just talking about. The words are from Dr. Rebecca Parker, who was leader of Star King School for the Ministry. And the music by Elizabeth Norton, the music director at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Concord, Massachusetts, which is a really beautiful building and an interesting neighborhood to walk around for American history. I'm not going to ask you to stand up because I think if you sing it together with each other, you can savor it for when you need some affirmation of this kind. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. What? There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. There is a love holding you. There is a love holding all that you love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love.
Instead of a reflection this morning, I have a reading from a report from the Unitarian Universalists Association entitled A Preliminary Report on Class in the Unitarian Universalist Association, which was published in 2015. It was written by the Commission of Appraisal, a group that chooses a subject every 4 years to study. This is from the definitions section, and it's not lost on me the irony that I'm reading from definitions section after my opening reading, but bear with me, they go well beyond a textbook definition. Class is a complicated topic, and the definitions and ideas used to describe class vary greatly. At its core, class is about power relative to income, wealth, and position in society. Class affects our capacity to minister to Unitarian Universalists and the world. Class has historical, social, geographic, cultural, psychological, and institutional dimensions. Class is linked to individual, family, and group experiences in society. For instance, people's economic position may have less to do with their lifetime earned income than with the history of their inherited wealth and the property held by their families and communities. Class affects the way we socialize, celebrate, eat, speak, and spend our time, even if we do not see these things as part of class position. When we enter a Unitarian Universalist congregation or community, these aspects of our lives enter with us, along with the experiences, assumptions, and resources linked to them. Class creates and provides the structure for inequalities that have had long-lasting effects on the health, well-being, and life outcomes of many people, with disproportionate impact on people of color and historically marginalized communities. The inequalities created by class lead to class struggles, in which the protection and expansion of accumulated wealth is opposed to the fulfillment of all people's basic needs. Despite our principles and history of work for social and economic justice, Unitarian Universalism is deeply rooted in class and class struggles. For some Unitarian Universalists, class remains an inevitable category or dimension of congregational and association life. For UUs who are working class or poor, class cannot be ignored because it more obviously constructs daily realities and interactions in community. Like positions in other systems of oppression, such as racism and sexism, powerful class positions in society often bring the privilege of not seeing class differences or failing to notice the widespread causes of class inequalities. Of course, class is not all of our story. Classism is linked with other systems of oppression observed and experienced in the UUA. So understanding class struggle with our movement helps us understand its intersections with other forms of struggle. This understanding might be free for us to fulfill our mission with more clarity and compassion.
No, yes. Thank you.
You have to sing again.
Yes.
The melody here was first printed in 1551 in a Genevan Psalter, based on Psalm 101. The words are from 1928 by Reverend Edwin Henry Wilson. That was also the year he was ordained, in 1928, and it was eventually published in the Humanist magazine, which he co-founded in the American Humanist movement. I'm going to play the tune through once, and then Susan's going to play the piano, and I'm going to invite you to stand because it's a lot of good words, so get your breath going to pay attention to the words too.
be seated.
Thank you.
You all Unitarian and Universalist hymns used to sound like that. We thought we'd bring a little old school in to show you what it was like. Way back when, before I was ordained, I was leading a service at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Orlando, Florida. And I was reading the script that was standard for that church. And, you know, it starts with an elevator speech. Every UU service starts with an elevator speech or something to remind us who we are for newcomers or tell us who we are. That morning, I said the following words from the script. We look for the worth and dignity of all people, and knowing that we are part of a web of connections that expands beyond our imagination, we strive as best we know how to build on our deepest values to bring justice and compassion to the world. On our journey together, we welcome all of whatever race, class, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious background, or physical ability. We welcome you. After the service that Sunday, a congregant came up to me and said, "Why did you call out class in the opening words?" They said, "I get why we talk about race and sexual orientation, religious background, and all these others, but why did you specifically call out class?" I didn't want to admit it was because it was the words written on the piece of paper at the time. I didn't have a really great response for it because we do talk a lot about isms in Unitarian Universalism. In particular, we've talked a lot about race in the last decade. We've talked a lot about sexism and heterosexism and gender identity. They're often at the top of our awareness. We are keenly aware of people who don't identify as Christians in a country where that is considered to be the standard for many. But what about class? Well, we've spoken about income inequality, right? Does that count? We've talked about equal access for voting, healthcare, and education, but is that really addressing class? My hypothesis is that we as Unitarian Universalists are still quite classist, and that, like many isms, we are often unaware of it. But that classism is still real, and we still struggle with it. But many people don't understand how much classism is also a part of our Unitarian Universalist DNA. For those of you who are new to Unitarian Universalism, that unwieldy name of our denomination comes from a merger of the Unitarians and the Universalists that happened on May 12th, 1961. Yes, it is the 63rd anniversary of that merger today. Let me tell you a little bit about our denominational ancestors and how the story of class is interwoven into that story. And it's important to acknowledge this history because, as Alice Walker says, to acknowledge our ancestors means that we are aware that we did not make ourselves. So here's the Universalists. The Universalist side of our denomination was founded in 1770 by John Murray. He was an Englishman who showed up in New Jersey and befriended a farmer named Thomas Potter. Yes, we have a puppet show about the famous landing of John Murray that we need to bring back at some point from the pandemic. Murray started preaching in the very humble church that Thomas Potter had built with his own hands. Murray preached the revolutionary idea that all people were saved, not just a few chosen ones. He spread his message beyond Thomas Potter's barn far and wide through other small towns and farming areas. If you will, John Murray was Universalism's first itinerant missionary. Universalism spread mostly through grassroots work by Murray and others who took up his mission all across the United States. Because these towns were small and didn't have a lot of money, the ministers were usually not educated. They were filled with purpose, and they were devout and spiritual people. They preached from the heart, even if their minds were not as educated. The word universalism came from their belief that everyone was saved and that God was love. There's our universalists. On the other hand, the left hand, they were both left, but on the other hand were the Unitarians. Contrary to being the religion of the simple farmers, Unitarianism first originated with the King of Transylvania in 1568, who was an ardent supporter of religious tolerance. Other influences of Unitarianism can be traced through the Reformation movement in England. And while the Universalists can spread from small town to small town and went west as the United States grew, Unitarianism was focused predominantly around Boston and was supported by Harvard Divinity School, where the majority of Unitarian ministers were trained. The Unitarian congregation members were often the elite of Boston society, rational, intellectual, and privileged. They were many of our founding fathers, no matter what the right tells you. Harriet Beecher Stowe summed them up when she wrote this in 1826. All the literary men of Massachusetts were Unitarian. All the trustees and professors of Harvard College were Unitarians. All the elite of wealth and fashion crowded Unitarian churches. The judges on the bench were Unitarians. Whereas the Universalists were deeply spiritual, the Unitarians were all about the mind and the power of reason. And one of their main focuses was challenging the idea of the Trinity. They believed God was one, hence the name Unitarian. So we have two liberal faiths that were both rejecting some of the most primary traditional tenets of Christianity. Through the 1800s and 1900s, they had more and more in common theologically and philosophically. They both strongly believed that people had the freedom to believe what they wanted and that their personal conscience should dictate their beliefs in the world. As such, they both refused to have a creed or a statement of belief as a necessity for membership. Members of both groups believed it was more important to be moral and good in this life than count on an afterlife. Both were on the cutting edge of progressive issues, although they did have their missteps. They were also both a refuge for Christians who wanted to leave their tradition and find a religion that better fit their values. They had so much in common. And as other Christian traditions became less strict about the creed, there was less that was differentiating about Unitarians and Universalists. There were so many reasons for them to merge. There were meetings and discussions about it for approximately 100 years. But it never happened. Why? It mostly came down to class. The Unitarians thought the Universalists were uneducated and that their ministers didn't have the degrees that they found so important. They thought the Universalists were too theologically conservative and too emotional. Conversely, the Universalists thought the Unitarians were too rational, elite, and snooty. They feared that their traditions and beliefs would be subsumed by the Unitarians. Basically, they both suffered from the belief that the other side was not like them. For almost 100 years, a merger was rejected because these issues could not be overcome. It is important to stop here and note that Americans of the 18th and 19th century didn't talk about classism or really any of these isms that we understand the way that we do now. For the first 100 years of our country's history, racism wasn't even a word that people used, and slavery was the law of the land. While many Unitarians and Universalists took up the abolitionist positions leading up to the Civil War and afterwards, let us be clear and acknowledge that many of them benefited from slavery before that, and slavery was a great topic of debate in both denominations. And sexism wasn't even acknowledged in either of these denominations until the late 20th century. In fact, it wasn't even until the early 1980s that the language in our Unitarian Universalist hymns and readings was addressed, because it was all about man. So classism wasn't acknowledged or discussed, much less any of those, even though it was definitely there. So let's get back to our story, shall we? Let me give you a good example of the differences in class between these two groups. Each of these denominations saw a lot of growth in the early 1800s, partly due to great leaders in their denomination. For the Unitarians, it was William Ellery Channing, and for the Universalists, it was Hosea Ballou. They were born only 9 years apart, 1780 and 1771, respectively. They both lived in Boston, and they were both prolific writers and passionate about their beliefs. Ballou was preaching about universal salvation, and Channing was preaching about the importance of human dignity and the free mind. They were pushing the theologies of their denominations into new and uncharted territory. They were both preaching in prominent pulpits in Boston for more than 25 years. We know that they knew about each other because they mentioned each other's positions in their sermons. But there is no record of them ever meeting. Why? Most likely because Channing lived on the fancy side of Boston, while Ballou lived in a more modest part of town near the Charles River. There seemed to be derision of each on both sides. There is documentation of some Boston elite Unitarians making fun of Ballou's rough and refined dialect and language. Hosea Ballou, on the other hand, noted the derision of he and his fellow Universalists, especially in their educational differences. He quoted that the Unitarians thought the Universalists were little better than barbarians when compared with the graduates of Harvard College and other polished literati. The difference between the two denominations was also described by Thomas Starr King, who actually straddled both groups. He was the rare person. He was raised in the Universalist church, and then he became a minister of a Unitarian church as an adult. He had a famous quote that summed up the difference between the two groups. He refers to the Universalists first and then to the Unitarians. The one thinks God is too good to damn them forever, and the other thinks that they are too good to be damned. So let me give away the ending of the story as if you didn't already know it. The Unitarians and the Universalists merged on this day in 1961, and we became one denomination with a really long name. But you could argue that the Universalists' concerns that their practices, their ministers, and beliefs would be subsumed by the elite Unitarians were realized. Our current denomination, I fear, often looks more like the Unitarians than the Universalists. Overall, we are a very well-educated denomination with a very high index of members holding higher education degrees. There is still controversy, and it is reignited about what the threshold is to become a Unitarian Universalist minister. The minimum cost for an MDiv and everything associated with it is $85,000. The majority of our congregations are in bigger cities rather than rural communities. In many denominations, the use of reason is seen as a higher value than the intuitive connection with the Spirit, although that is changing. You could say that we're an NPR kind of crowd. Now, this congregation, I'm very proud to say, is actually more economically diverse than many, but many in this room may not realize it or embrace it as fully as we could. So are we classist as a denomination now? Are we classist as individuals? Well, you can make that determination for yourself, but I can say it is something that we should think about. Let me ask you this. Have you ever scoffed at a Walmart shopper for being unaware of their purchasing power on the dynamics of small businesses that often have higher costs? Do you judge people who eat several times a week at McDonald's and depend on a dollar menu? While we may want to defend the health and the economic and animal rights, so many other issues that help inform our choices, I challenge you to ask if your opinions about others are based on the sense that you know better and may have a more informed perspective. I'm not saying that you should change your shopping habits. I am saying that we should all look at our motivations for judging or othering people. So what do we do about any of this? Well, I often say that the first step is acknowledging our biases, similar to the first step of any recovery program. We need to acknowledge that we might have a problem. The most difficult challenge we have in dealing with any of the isms, and it is a lifetime discovery and unpacking for many of us, is noticing when it is happening and being aware that we're doing it. Because any time we do any kind of othering in order to make ourselves feel better, we are furthering the cause of oppression and discrimination. And despite our history, we want to be the record disruptors, not the, oh, we did the bad thing, right? I don't believe that's who we wish to be. So how can we fully embrace our principles to see the worthiness and dignity of all people? How can we make our congregations more welcoming, this congregation more radically welcoming? I would argue that by becoming aware of the issues of class, we can also better address the issues of racism and sexism and income inequality and all of the other sources of oppression. Our history is not exempt of differences. In fact, it is defined by it. We have the opportunity to learn from it, to grow, to rise above it. There is so much to love about Unitarian Universalism, and there is so much to learn from it. In his essay entitled "The Community of Man," Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. said, "As long as there is poverty in the world, I can never be rich, even if I have $1 billion. As long as diseases are rampant and millions of people in this world cannot expect to live more than 28 or 30 years, I can never be totally healthy, even if I just got a good checkup at Mayo Clinic. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. This is the way our world is made. No individual or nation can stand out boasting of being independent. We are interdependent." So ends his quote. May we recognize the rainbow of humanity that we all are. Each of us brings to this congregation a set of traits and skills and know-how and resources which enrich all of us. We are remarkably different, and as King says, we give others a better chance to be who they are and what they ought to be. So might that be in our little corner of the world. So might it be in our denomination, and so might it be in the world. Amen, and blessed be.
To join me up here to help with leading this, you're welcome. It is Love Will Guide Us, number 131. The tune is a traditional American hymn tune. Tune is American tradition. The words are written by a contemporary folk and music singer. And the name of the tune, did you know that tunes have names? Because they get rewritten, and the book and the hymn shows the name of them. This one is named Olympia, for Olympia Brown, who became the first woman to be ordained a Universalist minister in the late 1800s. Hey. Gonna try to get the right chords here to go. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. Oh, there are more verses. Come up and sing them here.
As we close our service, we remind you to reach out to someone new. We've got a whole bunch of new folks, people you haven't seen for a while. Welcome back, all of our folks. Our exploration hour for children and adults start at noon and will be listed on the screen following the service. And coffee hour is right through that door in the Johnson room and on the patio. May we be all we can be. May we have others be the opportunity of who they want to be. May we seek equity and love in all that we do. And may we do everything we can in this world with great love. Go in peace. Go in love.